Uh, Good evening, everyone. I hope am I audible. Let's wait for
Yes,
five
Ria,
to.
you are audible.
Yes, sir. Let's wait for more 5 minutes. For other participants to join, and then we can proceed.
Hello, Ria. You started the session.
Hello, Ria. You are not audible.
You're on mute, Ria. Hello, Ria.
Yes, sir.
You're on mute, madam.
So sorry for inconvenience. I thought I was not on mute. So sorry. I will begin again.
Okay.
Am I audible, sir?
Yeah, now you're audible.
I'm so sorry for the inconvenience. I thought my mic was unmute, but let's start again. Hello and everyone, welcome. I am your host Riya Dhakan for today's webinar. My team and I are here to make sure you have a seamless and engaging experience. If you have any questions or need assistance, feel free to use the chat window. We are here to help. And our today's session is about mastering cybersecurity with Microsoft Security and Copilot. These are the topics. Now, let's take a quick introduction about synergetics. Today's event is sponsored by Synergetics Technology, but before we dive into the session, let's hear a leading edge learning solution provider in India offering specialized training and consulting services. We empower business and professionals to thrive in today's fast evolving tech landscape by delivering transformative learning experience. Our core focus is on enabling digital transformation through innovative skilling programs, advisory services, and end to end implementation support. From modernizing IT frameworks to mastering emerging technologies like AI, cloud computing, development operations, Synergetics is committed to equipping you with tools and knowledge to success. The Microsoft certification journey, it begins with the fundamental certification programs to advance. And there are many synergetics learning solutions, which are persona-based onboarding add-on, certification add-on, reskilling, emerging technology training, certification hackathon, cloud adoption, latest technology training, sales pre-sales training, practice playbook, and architecting. As we talked about the Microsoft certification skilling journey, there is fundamental, advanced, role based, and expert. Now, we are thrilled to have Mr. Om Prakash Pandey, sir, as our today's speaker. He's a certified Microsoft trainer and a consultant at Synergetics. He brings a wealth of knowledge and experience in AI and cloud technologies. Now let's head to our agenda for today's webinar, which is Introduction to Microsoft Security Copilot, Key Features and Capabilities, Integration with Microsoft Security Products, Enhancing Existing Security Infrastructure, Practical Applications and Use Cases, Incident Response and Threat Hunting Scenarios, Real World Examples of Security Copilot in Action. We have a code of conduct, which is we do not tolerate any foul language, disrespect, and any participation. And please make sure that there are no recordings of the video, and we will be sharing this webinar on YouTube if you want to engage with it further. We have several communities. We run communities on Meetup, Facebook, Instagram, and anyone who are eager to learn about technology knowledge, you can join these communities. And there are also different multiple communities in Pune, Gujarat, Nagpur, and Indore. Do follow us on social media platforms to get relevant updates for upcoming webinars, workshops, certification, that training we do. Also, I will be sharing the links in the chat box. These are the communities we have. Before proceeding further with the session, I would just like to make a little announcement that we will be sharing the badges redemption link, which are the certification badges for you. And how to redeem our steps are also written, are given in the guidelines as well. And also, in the end of the session, we will be also sharing the feedback form, and that will be really appreciative and helpful if you would go through the feedback and give us the session of how you felt. Before that, let's proceed with the session. And now over to you, sir.
Thanks, Riya. Hello and welcome everyone. Appreciate your patience and support. Thanks for joining on time. I hope my screen is visible to you all and you all can hear me clearly. You all can give me a update or a thumbs up on the chat. Thank you guys. Let's proceed ahead. As Ria mentioned, Synergetics is a Microsoft partner organization, and I have been working with Synergetics from last 20 years. It is my pleasure to help you all working and listening on newer areas, new technologies, especially Security Copilot. I have been working on various consulting assignments and helping various organizations from perspective of Power Platform, security solutions, Microsoft 365, and various other Azure services as well. As far as Microsoft is concerned, they have evolved over a period of time. And here, if you all see the key resources being added through Microsoft Learn, Microsoft has ensured that they have all their latest tools, technologies being published with small digestible modules using the Learn modules, organized in terms of specific learning paths, focusing on applied skills, focusing on certifications, going deep dive into areas where as an individual we can learn and implement these things. To make this learning a fun, we have Microsoft Learn badges and we have the scores being mapped over here as we go ahead through the entire learning process. As part of today's session, we are focusing on another applied skill, which is SC 5006. The title over here is Enhancing Security Operations using Microsoft Security Copilot. Before I proceed ahead with this session, can I see a quick raise of hands? People who are new to security. Can I see raise of hands? People who are new to security. So I can see 2 hands being raised, 3 of them. New to security. Okay. Thank you guys. Put your hands down. Can I see raise of hands? People who have worked with Microsoft Security Solutions, Microsoft Defender, Microsoft Azure Security, Microsoft Cloud Platforms, Entra ID. Okay, so I can see one hand being raised. Okay, one more hand going up. Anybody else who have worked with Microsoft Security Solutions? Only 2? Okay, not a problem. Thanks, Abhay. Thank you, Sampath. Please put your hand down. Guys, can I see raise of hands? People who have worked with third party security solutions, Kaspersky, Citrix, Juniper, third party solutions, security solutions, configuration, administration, usage. Not bad. So I can see 3 hands going up. That's good to see. So thank you, Shrikant. Thanks, Sampath. Thank you, Abhishek. Put your hand down. Now this is something which is good for me to know. People who have worked with other security solutions, products, so I can get feedback from them. How is Microsoft scoring? What other things they may be expecting over here, right? Now, before I dive into this particular session, Microsoft has released released series of security solutions using number of certification papers, starting off with SC 900 Security Fundamentals, SC 200, which is Administering and Configuring Security Operations, SC 300, which is Microsoft Entra ID P2 license, SC 400, which was the older paper, and now Microsoft is coming up with SC 401, targeted towards information protection, Microsoft Purview, information protection with Microsoft Purview, and finally SC 100, where you have Microsoft Cybersecurity Architect. So from perspective of designing these resources, working with these members, what are the key focus areas that one can leverage upon, especially while working with various security operations? So if you look at Defender, if you look at identity management, information management, all these aspects are being taken care. Is this all what security is all about? No. There will be many more such things which will be expected, required by the end users, which will have to configure. Now, keeping these aspects in mind, you have lot of other applied skills as well, because there are small pockets where people would want to go deep dive and start looking at the solutions available and how they can solve the customer's problem. Now, this session is about Microsoft Security Copilot. While I'm delivering the session, anybody has any questions, doubts, queries, feel free to put your questions on the chat. I'm also administering the chat for y'all. Can I see raise of hands, people who have worked with Copilot, whether it is Microsoft 365 Copilot or any other Copilot solution? Can I see raise of hands? Okay, so I can see few hands going up. Shrikant, Abhay, good to see that. So you all have some people have an idea in terms of what to expect from a Copilot. That's a good thing to see. So guys, here we are talking about Microsoft Security Copilot. Copilot in simple English would be an assistant who can help you by providing set of details, set of primary implementations that one would want to check for and implement in their day-to-day operations, rather than struggling to answer questions asked by the user, take time over there, right? How quickly we can pinpoint what is the issue area and resolve that as fast as possible. That's the purpose of Copilot. Now, how that can be applied into security would be a big question. And one would say, Om Prakash, that listening to it looks like a joke, because when it comes to security parlance or security areas, we need people with minimum of 5 to 6 years of experience to solve a given problem. Because when it comes to security, these threats or the security events could be cutting across multiple products and services. How can we solve that problem in such a easy manner? Though I would agree to that point, but that's what Copilot is all about. Provided it has been configured correctly, it has been mapped correctly, it can make magic for us. Okay, so let's understand how these things are done, what are the steps involved. Now, within this course, we will begin with a quick fundamentals in terms of what is generative AI all about. We'll begin with that. Now, one would say, Om Prakash, what is the relevance of generative AI with whatever you just mentioned? Guys, Copilot depends upon generative AI. The foundations of Copilot is generative AI. So when you say generating a solution or giving a first draft of a solution or a steps, that's all coming out of generative AI. The next set of resources that you'll see is understanding Microsoft Security Copilot, processing the prompts, what are the options available here. We will look at the core features and what are the experiences that you have when it comes to Security Copilot. So how one can go and use them. That's the key member as part of our security resources. Now one would say, Om Prakash, do we have time within these 2 hours? Will we be able to cover all of it? The answer is no. 2 hours is very less, but yes, it will give you a kickstart. It will help you to get started with how to work with Security Copilot, what are the options available here, and few key resources which you all can leverage upon, and as you go ahead, you all can work with it. My colleagues Shubh, Manish, and Ria are already there on the chat. So if anybody wants to go through any of these courses, SC200, SC300, SC400, 401, or any applied skills you all would want to go deep dive into, you all can connect with them. They have already shared the numbers, they have already shared the details with you all. So that should be a good starting point. And if anybody wants to build a career in security environment, we can assist you all with that. And that would be a great achievement for us as well to help you all achieve the objectives that you would want. Keeping this context in mind, let's proceed ahead. As Ria mentioned, and I mentioned earlier regarding Microsoft Learn, this is where you'll find all the relevant resources. The initial pre-read material, that is that is what you will get from here to help you initiate this process of learning. From perspective of what these environments are all about and how to work with them, it becomes slightly difficult, it becomes slightly problematic to give you all a working environment for Security Copilot. So what Microsoft has done is they have given lab-like simulations. So as I go ahead, I will share set of details with you all in terms of what would be these simulations and how do you work with it. Believe me on this, if you look at the cost of Security Copilot, it's very expensive. But when you go to the consulting side, when you go for your interviews, they say, have you worked with Security Copilot? Tell me how to do this, right? So now you can't say I have not worked on it, but I have applied for a job on the same, correct? You can say I have worked on a sandbox kind of environment, restricted environment, simulated environment. So once given a appropriate license, I know what steps to be done, right? And that's the idea with which Microsoft is giving us these simulations. Because many a times we are stuck saying where to go, where to click, where do you see these details, right? So all these things will be part of the simulations. In this timeline that we have, 2 hours, I can help you where to get those resources. So as you all go ahead, you all can try them on your own as well. Now one caveat over here, one would say, Om Prakash, what if the UI changes? Yes, there will be some changes in terms of UI, but you all should not worry on that, because there is not 100% change going to be there. It will keep evolving. There will be slight changes available. So few icons or few links may be at a different location, but it will be there. So once Ria shares the batch achievement URL, you all can redeem that. You all can start with your profile on Microsoft Learn if you all don't have it already, right? That will initiate your journey with Microsoft Learn platform. So keeping this context in mind, let me quickly get started with this, enhancing security operations using Microsoft Security Copilot. And as mentioned, let's go to our first module over here. As far as generative AI is concerned, let's first take a step back and understand what is this AI all about. As far as AI is concerned, artificial intelligence is concerned, this is an umbrella term being used, and what it is trying to achieve is called as simulating a human being. The purpose of AI is to simulate a human being from a perspective of analysis of a given data, from perspective of finding out or searching for certain resources, analyzing the text, analyzing the video or information being shared. This is what artificial intelligence is meant to do. Now, once it comes to generative AI, it's a subset of AI. And as the name suggests, one of the key aspects from what human beings do is they generate information, right? They consume details, consume information, and also generate the information. They can create something new out of whatever is being learned, whatever is being understood earlier. Now, once it comes to generative AI, it can help you to generate a letter, generate an image, generate a code, depending upon how the backend model is being trained. Like human beings, here also you have a brain involved, and that brain is referred as a model. So what we do is, like human beings, we first feed in the information, we provide all the required details, and then as and when required, we ask a question using a natural language, write a cover letter for a job application. So it says, okay, I know what is a letter, I know what needs to be written. Now, as you said, you want to write a cover letter for job application. What I understand is this will be meant for a senior person. So your language has to be in that manner, right? So it understands that context, and based on the context, based on the intent, it will generate a information for us, right? That's the key feature of that is a key feature which is expected as part of generative AI. Now this could be relevant not just from a uh, letter perspective, it could be for an image, it could be for a code generation as well. So again, can I see quick raise of hands? People who have worked with GitHub Copilot. Anyone worked with Grok or GitHub Copilot? Nobody? Okay. Abhay has raised a hand saying he has some experience on that. Good to know it. So guys, so if you see this code generation, the reason why I asked that question was code generation actually is what GitHub Copilot does. So based on your requirement or request being mentioned, it can say, Om Prakash, this is how the code will look like. Are you okay with that? Now, please understand, anything generated from GitHub is only a first draft content. It may or may not match your final expectation. Final ownership lands with you because it's an assistant. You are the boss, right? So you may not agree to Copilot saying, okay, thank you for your effort, but this is not what I want. I would want to change it, modify it. And the best part is, same as a human being, it keeps learning from the mistakes. As you give him the next set of instructions, it will go and upgrade itself, learn from that, and keep reducing the mistakes. Exactly same way how human beings would do. So as far as these generative AI applications are concerned, they are powered by LLMs. So behind the scene, they work with a large language model which can take different set of parameters. It can work on those parameters and generate required output for it. If you look at at the instructions over here, I'm not saying from a programming instructions point of view, how LLMs are being programmed, that's a different aspect altogether. But the way how they interact, the input how they take will be same as a human being. That is natural language processing. So you can give them set of prompts, set of instructions, and through that prompt, they will help you with the required details. So once it comes to your internal working, they can do sentiment analysis, they can do understanding of natural text, images, right? So any such information which is required. They can summarize the text, right? They can compare multiple text sources, right? Verify if these are two different plans or two different licenses, which one to go for, which one to discard, which one to accept, right? So all these basic things can be done by using LLMs. Apart from this, any advanced level analysis that you'd want, even that is possible, provided you must have trained the model accordingly to do those kind of things, right? So I know this is not a great question to ask. How many of you have used Microsoft Copilot, Microsoft 365 Copilot? Okay, Sampath has raised the hand. So Sampath, you must have seen there are two tabs. One is web and second is work. Am I right? So have you used the work section or just the web section? Okay. So anybody who has used the work section, which means they understand what is Copilot. Because as far as Copilot is concerned, Copilot can help you. Yeah, Abhishek. So Edge Copilot primarily is the web Copilot. And when I say web Copilot in sense, it is not collating that information with the on-premises data or your organizational data. So it's simple, what do you say, chat GPT kind of stuff, picking or generating data from available sources, but it may not correlate with your organizational content. So if you look at the way how it works in the backend, is exactly same way how human beings work, and that could be a small challenge for people. So as far as human beings are concerned, how do human beings learn? Human beings never remember exact data. So if you teach somebody something to somebody, they may understand what is the gist of it, what is the technology all about. But if you ask them to reproduce, they may not be able to reproduce the exact text as is. Because human beings are not meant to do that. Machines are meant to do that. Machines can help you generate or spit out same data which has been consumed. What human beings will do is they would map it to certain, they will use certain shortcuts or map that with experience and associate them in a specific manner. So once it comes to your transformer model, what it does is every text which is being mentioned, it will be stored associated with tokens. So each text will have a token map to it, right? So this is when you look at AI or generative AI based technologies, it is unlike SQL Server or unlike your database queries, where you say select star from employees table, find this value, give me the data. So it will give you back exact rows, right? Same thing may not be true for LLMs. It may not give you the exact data, but it can give you gist of what it was, and it can give you some additional information also. That is the core purpose of large language models. Because the way how it is being stored, so dog is never stored as dog, it is stored as 1, 2 or some number. Puppy is stored with some number. So in behind the scene, what it does is dog is associated with puppy. So it will do a association between them and store it at a specific place, right? So whatever is the association, it will map with the association over here, like how we correlate certain data with certain experience or certain vivid image that we create in our mind. Same way, this also will store it. Now, behind the scene, what it is doing is it is associating or storing some things as a token. So it's a token based storage and then retrieval of that data based on it. So once it comes to your vector based database, vector databases, this is where we have graphs being mapped. This is where we have association between the resources and how it is working. As part of large language model, if you see the steps being involved, step number 3 is how do you put attention on the relationship, putting the association between the members that we have, right? And what is the key resources which is doing the required mapping for us. So once it comes to your large language models, you can use these language models from Azure environment, where you have two primary models. One is your OpenAI based model, right, where we have the base resources, base members available, and you can have your model catalog as well. Now, when I say model catalog, anything which is beyond OpenAI. So Azure OpenAI models, that is resources available. Apart from that, if you have any other things required, you can use that as well. So things like GPT 4.0, 4.1, DALI, Whisper, those models will be available, or resources like Mistral, Hugging Face, and other members, those resources will be available here as well. If you don't want these members, you want to create your own custom model, you are open to do that. So using machine learning resources, we can create those members as well. So Microsoft provides a complete set of resources which is pre-existing plus which is extensible from cloud platform using Azure environment. So once you look at these models, so one that we mentioned earlier, that is LLM based models, and second model that we have is a SLM based model. So as the name suggests, LLM may go for billions of parameters, but please be aware it will also require large amount of computational power to train those models and work with them. Whereas if you look at SLMs will have fewer parameters and they will require smaller kind of environment, less compute for processing and working with these members, and it will be easier for them to evaluate and create newer resources at faster pace, right? So that's the key advantage that we have when it comes to SLMs. So if you look at some of the examples over here, Phi2, Microsoft Orca, Neo, these are some of the SLM based models. So one can go ahead, leverage these things from perspective of creating resources which is small, applicable for small organizations, mid-size organizations, they can go for SLMs. If you don't have pretty complex kind of deployments, all those things can be done through SLMs, deployed within a Docker container and make it available for your end users. Right? So once we have these resources mapped, the next member over here would be your generative AI. Right? So as far as these copilots are concerned or generative AI is concerned, the primary way how it will work, the primary way how these resources are going to work will be from perspective of making these things available as Copilot, as assistants in every environment. So whether it is in Azure environment, it is in Office 365 environment, it is in uh, Power Automate, Power Platform, right? Any tools, any resources that you see today within Microsoft, they are trying their best to ensure all these members, all these resources are being associated with right set of co-pilots. And each of these co-pilots is prepared, trained to perform in a specific way, right? So that's the advantage we have for co-pilots. From extensibility point of view, you can create your own libraries, you can bring in your own models, right? So there is a term being used called as bring your own model, right? So even that can be done over here without a problem. So if you see some of the examples which I was mentioning, AI on web, so that's what Abhishek was mentioning about Edge Copilot. Then you have AI in Microsoft 365, Microsoft Dynamics, Fabric, GitHub Copilot, which I mentioned earlier. And similarly, you also have something called as Microsoft Security Copilot. So now the challenge over here would be, one would say, Om Prakash, when you say Dynamics, when you say Microsoft 365, it's a kind of closed environment. Whereas once you talk about uh, things like Azure, and you type a Copilot, it will help you to map it to a pre-existing service, Azure service. I can still make sense out of it. But when you say security Copilot, it may not be similar to others. Why is that? Security is a cross-cutting concern. So starting from the browser, or the machine where that browser is being launched, to next set of layers that which is going, right? The UI layer, the service tier, the business logic tier, the integration tier, the database tier, and on each of these layers or each of these areas, we will have security running through. It's a cross-cutting concern. So it's not as simple and straightforward like how you have Dynamics or Microsoft 365 or GitHub Copilot, because they will have very clear kind of scope, that I have to generate information, generate contents only in this scope. Security is not like that. So everybody may be raising eyebrows and saying, are you sure what you are talking about? Because this is not a same kind of context as others are. But when I say I am thoroughly clear with this, what I'm talking about, Microsoft has put it in this criteria, because the kind of simplicity that you have when you are using Copilot on web, Dynamics, Azure, GitHub, similar kind of usability, similar kind of uh, interactivity point Microsoft is giving in Security Copilot. But from the scope point of view, you have areas, you have uh, getting into specifics of Microsoft Intune, Defender XDR, Sentinel, doing incident analysis, right? So when we are talking about these things, Microsoft has already taken care of it. And what it is expecting us to do as administrators, especially security administrators, is to configure these products, configure these resources in such a manner that we are able to capture the logs, we are able to capture that inputs, and have a complete end-to-end tracking of a security resource. If you have deployed right set of resources at every place, and all that information, all those details are being audited, all of these things are being mapped correctly, it becomes easier for us to work with them. If, if all the data is being stored correctly, then going back to that data and asking, saying, can you please tell me for this correlation ID what has gone wrong? So what it will do is, like I mentioned, it will cut across all the uh, uh, all the tiers, all the resources, help you to fetch information mapping to that ID, that correlation ID. Not just that, what would be a solution for it? Solution in sense, what is the solution on the endpoint which was being compromised? What is the things or changes to be done on the service level, on the integration level, on the database level? It can recommend those solutions. suggestions. It can recommend a solution for it. So this is what we can expect from Security Copilot. So if you see the options available, you have prompts, you have prompt books, you have respective collection of prompt books using plugins, you have respective roles. Role in sense, I am an administrator, tell me what to do. I am a end user, tell me what to do. I am an infrastructure administrator, tell me what to do. So based on the role, it can give suggestions. Now, if I have said I am an security admin, give me the steps, but you can't go and execute those steps unless you have those permissions, right? So we'll have to be careful in terms of what we are mentioning. So you need to have the relevant permissions to perform or execute those PowerShell scripts or seeing those options to perform the tasks. So whenever we are working with copilots, there are two set of prompts over here. So first prompt is called a system prompt. System prompt in sense, tell me what is the context, what do you want me to create. That's the first step, which is called a system prompt. Second aspect over here would be your conversations or the instructions that we are giving. This is what I want you to do, this is what I expect the data from you, right? So what we'll do is based on the steps being mentioned, based on the instructions being mentioned, based on the asks that you have, it will go and check in the logs, which is audits, which is being maintained behind the scene, and help you with the information. So that's the core purpose of Copilot. If you look at ways of extending or developing Copilot resources, so one is Copilot Studio and second is Azure AI Studio. Using these resources, using these members, we can create low code development of copilots, create respective plugins over here. We can have the conversational orchestration, right? So all these things we can perform using Copilot Studio, which is one of the options in terms of low code, no code solutions from extensibility point of view. If this still does not match your requirements, expectations, no problem. Go ahead with Azure AI Studio. This will make things more extensive for us. So one of them is a license based model, Copilot Studio. Azure AI Studio is subscription based model. So depending upon what resources one would want to use, right? Those things will be part of Azure AI Studio. Right. So this was quick understanding of what is generative AI and how it correlates to Copilot, how it correlates to security environment, security resources. Let's go to the next module. As part of the next module, here if you see, as far as the Copilot is concerned, this is what it is. So Copilot will have resources coming from OpenAI, which are the base models or generic models. As far as Microsoft Security Copilot is concerned, it leverages on OpenAI resources, plus it has hyperscale AI infrastructure behind the scene. It has security specific orchestration that needs to be done, right? It has required threat intelligence, right? Along with this, there is an end-to-end security tooling. There's an end-to-end security tooling which is there behind the scene. So that is what is making it more robust. It is making it more relevant from perspective of answering and addressing all the questions. Like I repeated earlier, mentioned earlier, I repeat myself once again. We need to have products, services deployed on each level. Should it be only Microsoft solutions? Not necessary. But there has to be security solutions which will integrate, which are capturing that information and storing that as a log files. So what is this security copilot doing? So first thing what it is doing is it is taking the entire data into consideration. The log file, the analytics that we have is taking that into consideration. And if you see the point number 2, Microsoft and non-Microsoft sources, it is not a compulsion that it should only be Microsoft security products. It could be other security products as well. Guys, just give me one moment. How many of you all are aware about MISA? Microsoft Intelligent Security Association. What Microsoft has done is they have clearly mentioned that we can help you do a product integration with our security solutions, which involves DDoS, firewall, Defender, Priva, Purview, Sentinel, Security Copilot, and these integrations can be done with all these with security products from all these members. You can see the names of the members which are part of the security alliance, if I put it that way. And there are plenty of members available here. So depending upon your customer's requirement, what kind of products or solutions they are using, the chances, there are higher chances you'll find them in the members list. So if you have any members or solutions are required for it, you can check them over here. So each company, what security solutions they have and how do we integrate them. That's the key idea over here. So if you look at the primary use cases, now one would say, Om Prakash, I have understood what it can do, what is the configuration required, it can work with the other partner top technologies as well, I'm clear. Tell me some of the use cases, because if I go to my manager and say we have to purchase a security copilot license, what should I tell? What should be the use case for it? So one use case over here could be incident summarization. So don't I have this resource available right now? I'm not saying no to it, but you will have it available across multiple products. Fetching that information at one place and generating a report out of it, what went wrong, that could be a tedious task. Okay, so with 2 or 3 days of timelines, knowing about all these products, having permissions on each of these sections, yes, we can do that. Second important use case over here is impact analysis. What is the potential impact? So you have very clearly mentioned to the customer saying, I would recommend purchasing a specific license, security product license, deploying it onto an endpoint onto or onto a specific area. Customer says, no, no, I will not do that. Can we do it after 2 or 3 months? Showcase the impact analysis. What could go wrong if we have not done this? and is the customer going to buy that immediately? We don't have any guarantees there. But you are very clear that I have clearly told you what will be the impact analysis if you don't take that decision right now. What are the repercussions of it? I have already told you. To do it or not to do it, that's your call. Then going ahead later, you can't blame me that Om Prakash didn't inform me about the impact. Third important aspect is reverse engineering of scripts. Today, most of us are working on ChatGPT, right? Can you tell me what will be the script for it? Or you go to Google, Bing, and you say, this is what I want to perform. Can you please help me with a PowerShell script? So somebody on some GitHub repository, the person may have got the file uploaded. You go ahead and download that, start try executing it. Right now that could be a big problem. So first thing what you want to do is do a reverse engineering of these scripts. What is the purpose of that PowerShell which is being written? I'm not able to understand that. Can you please tell me what is the, by mistake, if some script has some particular step which is trying to sneak critical information, security information from our environment and putting it onto the customer site, I would not want to do that, right? That's why reverse engineering of scripts. Because what I need is natural language which can help me understand rather than the cryptic PowerShell script or a Python script. Last but not the least, guided responses. Can you please help me with step-by-step guidance? This incident has been raised. How do I solve it? If I go to somebody like Om Prakash says, security is a complex subject. This is what was the beginning of the security. This is how the web servers have evolved. Boss, I don't want that. Just tell me what to do. If there is a 404 error, what to do? How do you solve that? So give me precise, concise, implementable steps. Go here, do this, click here, perform these. This is a quick level understanding of what those steps are supposed to do. That is what Security Copilot can help to do. Now, one area of challenge which I see over here is, what is the difference between a L1, L2 and L3 engineer? Nothing. All three of them can read the instructions and perform the tasks. So Om Prakash, I was a specialist in Entra ID. I was a specialist in Azure Active Directory or local Active Directory. With this, I will lose my edge. If that is the case, believe me on this, and I'm telling you from experience, the moment Copilot was being introduced, we have lost that edge already. The moment Microsoft documentation on Active Directory or Azure Active Directory was launched, we have already lost that edge. So it's better that we train these models, right? Provide right set of information. Let the lower end kids or the freshers perform these tasks and tasks with responsibility. And once these things are being done, they will be able to perform better tasks, better quality tasks in a limited time. Now, the next aspect over here would be, what if they are doing all these things? What am I going to do? You are going to prepare an environment for them so that they can work smoothly and produce quality results. You will be able to handle, your company will be able to handle more customers in the same timeline. With more customers, we have more revenue, and that should be your next step. Creating innovations, creating pre-existing members, pre-existing resources which will assist us in simplifying these tasks. Now, once it comes to Security Copilot, there are two types of experiences over here. So one experience is the standalone experience, which looks something like this. Prompts, prompt book, plugins, which I showed you all earlier, and it shows these are the pre-existing options available for us, what we can do. Next experience is embedded experience. So once it comes to embedded experience, like your Microsoft for Azure or Microsoft 365, correct? So on right hand side you will have a panel for security, for the security Copilot, and whenever you have an error, whenever there is a problem, it will show you a solution for that. Now in this case, second case, it by default has a applied context, and based on that context it will give you the required output. If you look at the terminologies, most of it we may be aware about, some things could be new over here. So every time you ask a new question or initiate a new session, that's where you have to set the context, mention the prompt over here. So if you look at respective plugins, this is mapping to a product which could be Microsoft Intune, Microsoft Defender. If you look at a capability, this is the function that is being given. Using prompt books, we can solve these questions. And behind the scene, what is working is an orchestrator, which is used to compose these skills together and answer to the customer's question, saying what do you require, what are the steps involved over here. We can specify those things within our session prompts. Orchestrate is something which is working behind the scene. So if you see this diagram, this may help us understand better. So if you look at a human being, the individual as an administrator, the user will submit a prompt which goes to security Copilot. Behind the scene, it understands the initial context, where is the customer stuck, what is the problem that they are facing, how do we solve that problem, right? Now, as far as orchestrator is concerned, it will build the entire plan, saying what steps are involved over here, right? Using the specific libraries, using the specific prompt which has been mentioned earlier. It will build a context. It will see how many tiers are available, where I have this relevant data available. It will build that context, analyze the data patterns, provide intelligent insights for it, and then it will go and respond back to a customer. Now when it is responding, this process is called as grounding. Grounding in the sense, it will fetch some data from internet, it will mix that data with the pre-existing resources here and provide the final outcome for this. This is called as grounding process. Now one question that people generally ask is, Om Prakash, this is our internal security details. What if there is some sensitive information which is being leaked out and it goes outside my organization? Guys, it doesn't happen that way. So when we talk about grounding, the grounding process over here is based on uh, pulling data from outside, internet and other Copilot sources, and mixing that data with our on-premises environment. None of your data is leaked out in public. Okay? None of our internal information is leaked out outside. So you need not worry on that. So once it comes to your response, it will do the final mixing of both that data, translate it into valid English, because many times the incoming data could be in JSON format, right? So it will finalize the data, make it in a natural English like format, or whichever language one would have mentioned, and then send this response to the end user. So this is a complete process which is being followed over here from perspective of giving responses to the prompts. If you look at a relevant mechanism of writing these prompts, so first thing should be, what do you want to achieve through it? What is the specific goal that you want to achieve? And if you see the example, give me information about incident 18718, which is a correlation ID. Second member over here would be the context. Why do you need it? how you are going to use this information. I want to use it for report that I can generate a report which I can submit it to my manager. Right? The goal is being mentioned, the context is being mentioned. Let's go to the next member. What is the expectation? What format or audience you'd want. Compile the data in information list with a short summary. Now you'll see goal is essential. Context is also essential. Is expectation essential? May not be. So in the first prompt, we may just go ahead with the goal and context, and in the later stages you can add the expectation. Finally, if you know about a specific source, do mention that. If you don't know, don't worry. If you don't know about where or what could be the data source where it can be available, don't mention it. If you know where it could be possible, do mention that. So this will assist the Copilot to perform its task better. So if you look at the process of enabling Security Copilot, so we have now understood what Security Copilot is capable of. We are clear with that. Now, for enabling this Security Copilot, so first thing that needs to be done is we have to purchase this. If somebody already has Azure portal, right? You have Azure subscription. Even within Azure subscription, we can create our members over here. Set the default environment, specify the role assignment for it, and then we can go ahead and start using this resource. So if you see the steps involved, name of the subscription, resource group, what is the capacity name that you'd want, what is compute units per hour that you'd want to mention over here. These are set of details that one can create or mention within the Microsoft Azure environment. Okay. So here if you see, to provision capacity, you must have Azure subscription, you must be an Azure owner, Azure contributor. You can also provision it using Security Copilot. That's another option. Since it's already 5:15, let me show some of the examples over here how these things can be done. What are the ways and means of doing this? Let me go to my Azure portal. I'm just showing a quick demo over here. All of you all may not have Azure subscription. I do understand that part over here. I don't have any resource right now. So if you look at the options available, you have Azure OpenAI, which we mentioned earlier. So whichever resource group you would want. So resource group is like a logical unit inside which we can create our resources. Let me use Southeast Asia. Standard is 0. How do you want to make it available? This might take a moment. While this is happening, let me showcase the security copilot as well. Okay, Microsoft Security Compute capabilities. I can use any existing resource group, capacity name, prompt evaluation location. So if you want to provision it any other place, if this location is not available, what is the compute capacity that you would want? And you'll see as we keep increasing the compute units, the cost is also increasing parallelly. So what is this is the basic configuration if you see. Let me go ahead, click on review and create. Okay, click on review and create. Meanwhile, this is getting created. Let me go back to existing resource over here. You can see resource management, mapping of Defender for cloud. These are the primary members. So if you want to look at the models available, we can go to Azure AI Foundry. And here we can see our model catalog. What are the pre-existing models available from OpenAI perspective? LLMs, SLMs. So we can see all those members available here. So if you want to deploy any kind of models over here, if you want to deploy any kind of models over here, so here you have your fine-tuned model. We have our base model over here. GPT 4.1, 4.1 mini, O3, GPT 4o. Whisperer model which I was mentioning about. So all these models, Babbage model, Da Vinci model, DALI, all these models are pre-existing available over here. So we can pick any of these models and deploy them. Second thing we mentioned about was Security Copilot. Let's go to the capacity section, and here you have options to go to the portal and complete the required setup. securitycopilot.microsoft.com. Since this is an expensive resource, I don't generally keep it ready. As and when required, I create it, and once the job is done, I go and remove this resource. So while this is happening in the backend, let me go back to my presentation. Right, same thing we have mentioned over there while creating the Security Copilot capacity. So once you have your environment ready, here what we can do is we can give permissions to specific users. So global admin, security admin, what permissions would you want to mention over here? So what is the SKUs required? What is the geographical location of tenant? Any kind of plugin settings that you want to mention? All these things we can perform over here. So which type of users, what permissions we want to give to them, all these things can be mapped here. Which now once it comes to giving permissions, giving these permissions to specific individuals, that could be a hectic task. So here what we can do is we can give permissions to a group. So group of people will have set of permissions. Right. So you can give permissions like Copilot owner, Copilot contributor, associate that with Microsoft Entra ID groups that we have. So it becomes easier for us to manage those things. So if you look at the other roles which are required or other roles which are recommended would be your Entra roles, purview roles, defender roles, because if you don't give them permissions, they will not be able to get the data from defender audit logs because they don't have permissions there. Right. Same way, if there's any concerns or challenges from perspective of purview information protection, they will not be able to dig deeper in that area. Right. So we'll have to give permissions to the user to help them perform that task. So let me stop here and let me share some of the links with you all which will make it easier, for us to perform these tasks and activities. So this is how it look like. Prompts, prompt books, what roles you want to perform. So we have CISO as a role, IT administrator, cloud administrator, data security administrator. What plugins do you want to add over here? Right. And once you're done with this, we can specify a session. What is the actions that one would want to perform? What actions or tasks that you want to perform? We can mention these things over here. So you can initiate multiple sessions over here. So if I have any pre-existing sessions or if I want to create a new session, and within each session we can map to our resources. Guys, even if you all have your Azure subscription, just be careful because these could be expensive resources. The easier way of working with this would be by using pre-provided resources on our learning path. Okay, let's take a look at it. Let me share some of the links with you all, and as promised, you all can try these things out at your pace, go through each of these modules in depth, and exactly same thing that we are covering right now, you all can do those things here. So what are the core features, workspaces, how to use Microsoft plugins, how to use non-Microsoft plugins over here, how to describe a custom prompt book. All these information you will be able to see over here. Right? Exactly same thing that I was showing to you all right now. All this information you will be able to see on the learning path. Second important module over here is use cases, how one can implement security copilot, what are the options and resources available for it. Those things we can see here. Third member is the complete guide that we have on GitHub environment. You all can leverage on this. Okay, so if you look at the options available here, so you have deployment from Azure perspective, security copilot which I showcased right now. Right, so these are the primary areas that one can look at from implementation point of view. So this would be the root link where you have all the learning paths mentioned at one place. So I've shared the respective links with you all, so you all can leverage on that. Let me go to the simulation which I was mentioning. Let's go to the simulation which I was mentioning about. Let me put this link on the chat. Yeah, so I have shared the respective respective link. Let me go ahead and show you the environment over here. So here if you all see, I have shared this link on the chat. So anybody who wants to try it right now, you all can do that. So if you see the exercises over here, they have already clearly mentioned how one can go ahead and try these things out. So earlier they were giving the environment here, which has been discontinued. Just scroll a bit below and follow the steps here which is being mentioned. And every step that one is to do is mentioned available. Just be aware, don't try performing any other activity which is not mentioned here. The reason being, this is a simulated environment, right? So whatever steps are being mentioned, only those steps we can perform here. Other things, if you try clicking here and there, it will not work. Just give it a moment. And you all can do it right now. Try out the initial steps over here. Can you see this? So it gives you a similar kind of experience how I created it, how I showed you all within my environment. Same thing you will see in the simulated environment as well. The purpose of simulation is to help you how this actual environment will look when it comes to your license. So even from Azure portal point of view, you have all the steps being mentioned here, though it's not required. So even in sense, so even if you don't perform those steps, you can go to the next steps. So in day-to-day scenarios, what needs to be done here, that is what is being mentioned. So how the actual environment will look like. So once you are on this Azure portal, you can start enabling access management. So from Azure portal, go to Entra ID. This is my Entra ID as a resource. Let's go to the manage section. Add role assignment. Let's go to the properties section. Access management for Azure resources. So which user is going to perform all these tasks on behalf of Woodgrove. Enable it, save it. So now what we can do is, now we can view all the resources. So let's add this user as owner within our environment. It's already saved. Okay, it says this feature is not available. So let's go to the subscriptions over here. Let's give permissions. That's what is mentioned as a step. Select subscriptions, add role assignment, just give me a moment. So even in this case, I don't know why this is not working, but this is what they have mentioned here: access control IAM, add permissions to every hover. If it is not working, don't worry, we can go to the next resource. Like I said, you all can perform specific steps over here. Select your subscription, select your resource group, what is the capacity name that you want to mention. You can see what is the capacity price over here. So anything which is not mentioned over here in the steps, if we use that value or if we perform that step, it might give an error over here. If you have a MSDN subscription, right, where you have few credits left out, or if you are using, if you are able to create a free trial account, in those cases you all can use this. My recommendation once again, once your job is done, make sure you delete that resource. Allow Microsoft Purview to access any of the data. So what is the Copilot usage? Whom do you want to give permissions? As part of the initial setup, global administrator, security administrator, right? So once we are done, we'll be able to see the Copilot workspace. And this is a very, very important section. So if you see this, that I was mentioning about, so even if you don't mention it, in the back end, it's already being mapped. So once it comes to your environment, your step number 1 would be specifying details in terms of owner settings. So what are the options available here? Along with this, we have the plugin settings. So what are the available plugins that we have? And like I mentioned earlier, all of these things may not be only Microsoft resources, right? So these are all the members that is available as part of your MISA portal, which I mentioned earlier. So there's a huge list which is available. While we speak, there are a lot of other partners who are yet working on these plugins. They are creating resources mapping to the security copilot. So that work is already going on. The specifications have been laid out, the specifications have been mentioned to them. What are the possibilities, what are the options available here? So if you see task number 2, that is review owner settings, plugin settings, and this will be our first lab, right? Now, when you talk to your team members, when you talk to your customers, have you worked on Microsoft Security Copilot? Yes, I have. Do you know what are the options available? Yes, I know. Do you know what is the significance of each of these options? Yes. But was it a real life environment? No. That was a simulated environment. Right? So you'll have to be very clear when you are providing these answers. So if you give me a actual security copilot environment, I would know where to go, what actions do I want to, what changes or configuration I have to make to get my environment successfully set up and running. That is something which I am aware about, right? So owner settings, plugin settings, all these things we can map over here. Now this is just one simulation. Similar to this, there are multiple other simulations as well as we go ahead with each of these modules. So guys, does it make sense for you? Can I get a quick revert on the chat? Okay, let's proceed ahead. So this was the first simulation which I showcased. I'm skipping the knowledge check because of paucity of time. So once it comes to the next module over here, describing the core features of Microsoft Security Copilot. So first thing that we mentioned about was the experience, right? So if you look at the initial previous module, we mentioned about the settings. The next module is going into actually using these members. So that is in terms of the home menu, which are the plugins or resources being mapped over here, prompt books, which prompt resources you can type over here, what are the sample members that you have. You have the home menu. So what we practiced in the previous session was primarily the home menu section, where we have all these values being mapped. From sessions perspective, if we already have some of the previous sessions being executed, we can leverage on that data, leverage on that values over here. So it says there are no sessions available. And if you try creating some of the sessions, help me with enter ID. Can you see this? So wherever some things are not mapped over here, it will give an error for it, because this is not part of the simulation. So here what we can do is, In the next simulation, we can see all the sessions available, and within each session what you are doing is you are specifying set of actions that you would want to perform. So maybe retrieving that error code, error information, fetching the data from appropriate audit logs, log analytics resources or Sentinel, asking for some of the help required, right. So here you can see your prompt books where you can take a copy of that, perform multiple steps required over here. So we already discussed about the plugin settings earlier, so I'm skipping that area. If you look at the role assignment, some of the additional permissions, if the user is not a owner of that domain, we may have to give him security administrator, security operator, security reader, along with global administrator. So once we have multiple prompts being executed, here we can see a complete diagnostics of it. Because I would want to know how many people, how many requests have been executed. Are we, since we are already investing good amount of money here, I would want to find out whether this resources have been used thoroughly or not. So we can check for the users over here any kind of UI changes that one would want to do, we can do that. Along with this, if we have if we are an organization working on managed services for multiple customers, we would want to perform these actions and activities, hop onto their environment, see what actions have been done, what is going wrong, right. So you must have done, can you share my screen, or use different kind of tools to get the screen access, perform the tasks or activities there. Something similar can be done using the tenant switcher. But here what we are not doing is we are not taking access or control of their screen. Instead we are taking control of the log files that you have behind the scene, find out what has gone wrong and provide suggestions for that. Right. So here you can see some of the basic prompts, application assignments, critical decisions to be done, device ownership, what is the device status, provision, not provision, anything being applied on top of it, right. So those things we can check from here. I'm skipping some of these areas because I would want to show these things to the next simulation. Let me share this link on the chat. So any one of you all who would want to try this, you all can do it right away. And here if you see the first task, it says now you don't need to go to Azure portal. Directly go to Security Copilot, perform the required steps over here, go to My Sessions, go to the prompt book library, can you see this now? So in the previous one it was showing an error that this is something which is not available. So these errors which you are seeing is actually not errors from a security copilot point of view. These errors are because of the simulation. So don't get disheartened because of that, because each simulation is focusing on a specific area, right. So if you see the example over here, what are the last 3 failed logins? So it says, Om Prakash, these are the steps which I had performed to dig out this information. Selecting data from Microsoft Entra, this is the time which it took. processing your request, looking at the log files, 2 seconds, preparing your response, and then this is the information which I have shared. So the life cycle that we mentioned, you all can see the details here. So Gabbard, twice it has failed, yeah, thrice. All three failed logins from same user, which means this resource may be hacked. This resource may be hacked because somebody is trying to consistently re-log in with the same failed credentials. So this is what I have done. So prompt book library, I'm skipping some of these steps because I have already worked on this environment and even I have worked with the live environment as well. So I know what actions to perform. So some places I get stuck because in the simulated environment I have to go back and map which of them are allowed, which of them are not allowed. But for y'all, my recommendation would be just make sure you go through the environment, you go through the lab documentation correctly, execute those steps as mentioned in the sequence, get defender summary, and if you see each of these members, the core purpose which Microsoft is trying to achieve through this is these attacks or the data leakage or device being compromised, this could be at various levels. So it could be at the initial level, it could be at the mid level, it could be at the database level, right? And depending upon the resources that we have configured, the product security solution that we have configured, right? We can capture our details and we can show this information here. So you'll see Defender solutions, Sentinel solutions, Sentinel based investigation, all these members can be mapped over here. So anyone who has failed login, which was the country, location, which was the IP address being used, all that information we can see over here. So everyone, go ahead, try this out. I have already shared the link with you all on the chat. And here if you see for some of the other tasks, explore the prompts and the sources icon in the prompt bar, they have mentioned the steps. Close the previous browser tab and click on this new link. The reason why they are asking you to close and reopen it, because in the new simulation they may have activated some of the other members which were deactivated in the previous one. So everyone, go ahead, perform these steps. Do let me know if you have any questions, doubts, queries from understanding security Copilot and trying out these simulations.
Participants, please do fill out the feedback form. That would be really helpful for us. And please don't forget to put out the suggestions and your experience about the webinar in the feedback form. Thank you.